There we go, crappie. Nice. Sweet. We're kind of out in the middle of nowhere right now. We're in a bay that typically has crappies in it in the spring. And we're not really fishing around any cover right now. That is just a little perfect eater. All right. And really we're in the middle of the bay right now. And so crappies in the spring, you know, you're often thinking of finding them in weed beds, or when they're spawning, they might be near trees or up in, you know, some shallower cover. But before they go into spawn, I'm talking when the water's like, say, you know, in the low 40s to mid to high 50s, a lot of times they'll be suspended. They'll be, you know, in an area where you think they'll spawn, or a bay that's just warmer than everything else, but they're not always around cover. They might be this far down under the surface in 15 feet of water. So you can go through and fish a lot of shallow stuff, and if you don't catch any, oftentimes they're behind you. And so we ended up picking up a fish off the side of the weed line, and here we are just drifting along. Side imaging has been a really great tool in this case to actually see where the schools of fish are out in the mud. And they're in 12 to 15 feet, and they're just like, I don't know, maybe 4 feet down under the surface of the water. And to me, when they're out like that, one of the best ways to get them is swimming a jig. When they're out here doing this often, they are moving fast. So you could be spot locked here, you could both cast off the back of the boat and go bang bang, get a double, and then you fan cast everywhere around you. Nothing. You got to keep moving because the fish are moving all of the time. And so why I think that the jig is such a great tool for this is, one, you can cast it into the wind really easy. So this is that Big Bite Baits Lindner Panfish Special Jig. I like this bait. It's a 1/16 of an ounce, excuse me. It's got a plastic body and just a little bit of marabou on the back here for as an enticer, but that plastic body allows the bait to fall. It's got that nice slow fall rate, and you can just control your depth with it. And that is so much of it. It's not like crappies are really that hard to catch. Most of the time it's just finding them. So once you've got them isolated, the real secret is keeping the bait above them. So when I'm getting started doing this process, I'll oftentimes just drop the bait in the water, and as I'm counting, like 1001 on slack line, how fast is that falling? This thing looks like it's falling at about 18 inches per second. So start making those casts and counting it down to maybe 2. So knowing that you're down about 3 feet, fishing the bait back like that. And if you're not getting bit, count it down a little further, but don't go too deep. The biggest mistake I see people make fishing these suspended crappies is fishing below them. When they're active, they will move up to try to hit a bait. There's no doubt about it. So the setup I'm using for this, and I'll show you the setup and then I'll go through how I'm actually fishing it. So this is a St. Croix, this is an Avid series. It's a 7-foot light power, extra fast action. I love the extra fast actions in the panfish rods, whatever series it is. It just lets you do a lot with the baits, and it's easy to get the hooks driven home. Size 1000 reel. This is just a little Daiwa Fuego here. And then my favorite panfish line ever, Suffix Nano Braid 6-pound. And in this case, I tied direct. I didn't tie a leader on. This water's dirty, but I was anticipating catching the fish up in some heavy cover. This lake's got some really dense cover around the shoreline, and I figured that's what they were going to be in. So I didn't want to have a fluorocarbon lead to get broken off, so I just tied direct, and it doesn't seem to be making that much difference. So now let's get ready to fish this bait. 2 things to keep in mind, or the first thing you want to keep in mind, I should say, is wind direction. If you fish crappies in the spring, you know that it's windy a lot of the times. And so fishing crosswind with this technique just doesn't work. Wind catches the line and the baits end up moving really fast. You have absolutely no depth control. So when you're doing this, either spot lock and fish into the wind or fish with the wind, and that's going to allow you to present the baits a lot better, and you'll be able to feel the bites. A lot of times the bites are super subtle. They're just coming up, grabbing the bait, they'll inhale it and push it forward, so you don't actually feel. A lot of times when they're biting, you can see the line jump, or you'll go to kind of pull again and you can tell it's a little bit heavier. They just grab it. So if you're throwing crossways, unless you see the line jump, You're not going to feel the bites, and I think the bait is just moving too fast. So I'll show you how I'll do this. Maybe we can get another one. Wind's at my back here. I'm going to make the cast where I think it should be. On slack line, I'm going to maybe just count it down 1, 2, 3 in that case. And now I'm just kind of pulling the rod forward with a really high rod angle, dropping the rod back, picking up the slack, and then I'm pulling it forward again, dropping the line, picking up the slack. And that, just that pulling motion like that as I'm doing with my rod keeps the line tight with the jig. So if I do get bit when I'm pulling, I'm able to feel it really well. I feel like I can feel it better than if I was just slowly reeling. And a lot of times, this is just what I do. As I drop that line back and pick up the slack, as soon as I go to pull again, I got a fish. So that bait's kind of coasting. It's maybe lifting. I drop the bait back and it falls, and then I lift it back up and it's in business. So to me, that's one of the best ways to retrieve the lure in the water. So if you're out fishing crappies in the spring and you're struggling to find them in the shallows, swimming a jig is a great way to catch them. And now this will be another technique also that will work throughout the summer months. This isn't just when the crappies are pre-spawn suspended. As soon as they're done spawning and summer rolls around, they start to pull off the weed lines. You can do this technique all summer long. It's one of the best techniques and tools to be successful for catching crappies. So we appreciate you watching this. If you like this video, please subscribe or hit the like button, and we will be back with more fishing content next week.